and it takes place in January. The first part is actually part of an interview with the old fellow in the 1800s. They used to cut the gorse bush in January and cart it to the lambing yard in preparation for the first arrivals. We always had 3 or 4 men on the hill bush cutting. This was piecework, and the day's work was 100 faggots at 3 shillings per 100. These we had a good use for. They were taken to the lambing yards for shelter. We always had 2 large pens outside the yard to work them out of the small pens to make room for the newcomers. So it took a good amount of sticks to make a 5-foot shelter around them. After the lambing, the bush would be stacked up again and taken to the graffens where the sheep fed, and stacked in a hedgerow with a sod of earth every 2 or 3 of them to hold them from the wind by the side of the growing corn. A shepherd could not tend 4 sides of a field, and this made good protection from the sheep on 1 or 2 sides. When the corn was cut, away goes the stacks to keep the corn off the damp ground. You will think that was the finish of the bush, but no. When harvesting a stack into the barn, when the sheaves were all loaded up, the 3 men, and sometimes the carter, would load home with all the strunks fit to burn, and set light to the remainder. Bushwhacking, as it was called, was a rough job, even for the men who were dressed for the purpose in their oldest clothes, with plenty of protection from the spiteful gorse spikes. But for a little fellow of 11, it was like floundering about in a sack full of hedgehogs. But all that would be forgotten when he got back to the clock-ticking security of the warm kitchen at Northgate in the evening. With the curtains drawn and a good fire of gorse strunks in the grate, his wet clothes changed for dry, and he himself safely on the outside of a good dinner, he used to come back to life again. Playing marbles with his brother on the hearth rug, or any other game for that matter, was permitted, as long as silence was preserved. Observation of this rule, though mightily difficult to maintain, was strictly enforced by Grandad, who, with his spectacles perched on the end of his nose, sat at the table scratching away with a steel-nibbed pen, keeping his records up to date and planning what was to be done in the coming year. The foundations of a farming season that produces good fat stacks and full barns in the autumn were laid in the previous winter's evening in that small kitchen. Presently the old man would say, "Well, I think that gets it pretty much up together." Then he would get one of the boys to draw him some beer from the barrel in the beer cupboard under the stairs. And after he lit his pipe and drawn long and deep from the beer mug, he would push his chair back so as to face the fire. After a while, when he'd settled down again, he would say, "Let's have a song then, shall us? Best have a Christmas one, I should think. That bain't over yet. There'd be 12 days to Christmas, don't you know?" Then he would incline his head slightly, and with his eyes shut tight, break into song. "On the first day of Christmas, my true love sent to me." Everyone would join in, mother as well, and that is how they would pass the winter evening away.